Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Partnerships in SaaS. I'm your host, Barrett King, and with me today is Richard. He's the VP of Channels over at NaviStone, and Richard brings a real plethora of background in agency, something that I frankly myself get asked a lot about. And in particular, we're going to talk about how to deliver value to agencies, how to think about partnering with agencies. So I'm super fired up. This is certainly my wheelhouse, and you are an expert in it. Richard, welcome to the show, my friend.
Barrett, it's great to be here. Expert is one of those terms that gets, bandied about frequently by folks. I consider myself an expert strictly from an experience perspective. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've probably worked with over 5,000 marketing agencies across 15 years. And while, I try to tread lightly on the term expert. 15 years and 5,000 agencies later, I feel like I've kind of been there, done that. So I can live with the term expert, I guess, going forward,
I like that. Yeah, let's own it. We'll brand it for today. Maybe we could say you're like a fine wine, right? So like with age, it becomes more robust. It perhaps tastes better in that experience. So we're going to call you an aged wine, I guess, in that context. So I want to get into it because I think there's something really unique about, we talked a little bit obviously before we hit record today. One of the comments you made was, this insight, this clarity into thinking about what motivates agencies, really, I think more than anything, when they partner with software companies, when they work with businesses that are additive to their own service set. So give us some context if you want around, be helpful to have like kind of the story of like how you've experienced over your 15 years, the different ways that agencies can engage with a business like yours. And I want to frame it in context of, my listeners tend to be kind of all over the map across partnerships. That's very intentional. Folks that are in marketing, sales, CX, CS, kind of the full gambit in terms of the role. What I'm picturing is someone listening to this episode and wanting to understand some of those early indicators. How do I work with agencies? What are some of the things I can do to evaluate the value that I deliver to them, or think about the way that I can position my business to, engage them, get them invested, and get them ready to use our tool to pitch us to their customers. And so I'm thinking about that early stage in building a partner program, or somebody who's been doing it for a little while perhaps and is challenged to figure out how do we properly work with marketing agencies. So let's kick off there for context's sake. How do we, in your experience, if I'm that persona, how do I start out? How do I approach? How do I engage? What are some of the early things I can do to learn about my fit within the marketing agency space?
Well, certainly that's kind of a key, right, for anybody who's building a partner channel. What does that ideal partner look like? ICP, everybody always talks about that. I don't think that in an immature program you really can know that. I think it does take trial and error, and I think you need to rally around 3, 4, maybe 5 different partner types until you can really know that, okay, we've got a good sense because we're driving revenue from these partners. We're seeing recurring revenue now. They're becoming productive. They're activating more quickly. The signs will be there. Once you've done that and you've kind of got that ground floor or that baseline built, I think at that point, and I use this word a lot, you have to build trust. And this goes past just agencies. I think it's super important with agencies, because marketing agencies are typically dealing with 3 to 5, sometimes even as many as 7 other marketing services companies that they work with. Obviously, almost everybody's working with Google, right? But maybe they're working with an email service provider. They're working with a CRM company like HubSpot, also marketing automation as well. So there's all these companies that they're partnering with. How are you going to stand out? Well, to me, the fastest and quickest way to stand out is by earning their trust, because once they trust you, then they're going to go to bat, not just for themselves, but for you, because they believe in you. They believe in the product or service that you're offering them.
I like that call of trust. So how do I, if I'm listening to this, one of the things that I'm thinking while you're describing that is, how do I identify, is there is there a framework? That's probably the wrong word, but is there a way in which you've gone about connecting with agencies? Let's say that they are at that stage where we know that we give some value. We're not really sure. I'm inclined to say, just call them up. Is it as that simple? Do you just reach out to these partners, these folks that you're doing business with, and say, what are you getting in terms of value? How do you think about that part of the process?
I think let's take it back to that first point of activation, right? They've come on board, you're working with them, and you're trying to help them activate their first client. I think in that process of activation, that's where you start to build the trust. So what are you doing to enable them to be successful? Yeah, everybody talks about sales enablement tools and we provide them all that. That's well and good. And that's table stakes. Everybody has to have that. But it's what you do in between and after you've provided a sales enablement tool is what's going to put you in a position of, okay, well, now we trust them because they're doing what they say they're going to do. So for example, maybe that first project happens, it doesn't go great, right? There's some missteps here and there. There's some bugs in the platform, whatever. How you address those bugs, how you support the partner as the partner's trying to support their client, that tells them everything. That tells them, well, this company really stands behind not just the product when it is working, but when it isn't working, and they're supporting me. They're giving me the tools that I need to get through this period, right? Because for them, this is a new thing, right? They don't know if building a campaign on this particular platform is going to be successful or not. They are hoping it's going to be successful. That's why they're taking the plunge. But if you don't take the time to help them when things aren't going well, then they're not going to invest in you. They're going to walk away. And I know it's easy to say that, and to some people, well, that's obvious. But in practice, it's sometimes really hard to do, because in the channel, you have far fewer resources than you do on the direct side of the business, right? You don't necessarily have customer success agents, at your beck and call. You don't have the product team at your beck and call. You don't have a lot of the resources that, frankly, you can take for granted on the direct side of the business. So that means sometimes it's one person rolling up their sleeves. It could be a partner account manager who's doing more than just selling. They're providing partner support. They're providing tech support. They're doing a combination of things to ensure that that agency is successful in that initial campaign. And when you establish that and you are successful that first time, that's the trust that I'm talking about. You've built and established that trust. Now that agency is going to go out to the rest of their client list, and they're going to not be gun shy. They're going to be excited about, hey, you know what? This worked. This was great. We had some bumps, but they proved that they're going to be with me no matter what. So I'm now willing to take this new service offering to the rest of my clientele and bring them across. And that's where the gold is. That's the end of the rainbow to me.
Yeah, it's both mutually being invested. That's what I'm hearing you say. And thinking about the customer as ours versus theirs or yours. I've heard that before. I love that you call that out. I think that's an important highlight to double click on. So we're talking about obviously when things go bad. How do you do it when things go well? Like, let's say that those first couple engagements work. I've heard folks talk about, we do co-delivery, right? We'll do the first 2 or 3 implementations or migrations or whatever their service value is to your customer. I've heard that. Are there other things that you've experienced in your time that are good, call it positive, right? Net positive outcomes in the sense of like the software works, the solution solves for the customer, everybody's winning. Are there other value adds that you can think of that someone could lean into in those first relationships to build the value props that you're talking about, those dynamics?
Well, I do think, so getting back to some of the table stakes, I do think it's championing those table stakes. So when you start thinking about, okay, so what are our sales enablement tools going to be? What are we going to offer that's going to blow the socks off of the agency, that's going to make it so darn easy for them to pitch the client? So for example, did we do a mock-up of something, of a campaign that maybe the other company that they've looked at, or maybe their other partners, they don't do that. So, you're going to do a mock-up, so I can literally walk into my client with this campaign that I'm pitching with a true life mock-up? So in other words, are you going to take the time to do the extra thing, whatever that extra thing is, to make it even easier for the agency? Because once you make it easier for the agency to sell your products or services, you're going to have the lion's share of their mind share. And when you have their mind share, you're going to get their revenue share. And that's really what it's about.
Yep.
It's not, I mean, I didn't invent this, right? This is a true and tried process that any successful channel organization wants to implement. So it's really doubling down on some of those table stakes and saying, we're going to make sure that at least one or two of our sales enablement tools are the best tools in the marketplace. Nobody else has them this good. Everybody can do a pitch. Anybody can do a pitch deck, right? Anybody can create an email campaign. But what is it that you're doing that's unique, that's different?